Welcome to the Fire and Earth podcast with your hosts, Jason Mefford and Kathy Gruber. Fire and Earth, giving you the keys to unlock your limitless potential.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. I am your co-host, Kathy Gruber.
And I'm Jason Mefford. And today, we're going to talk about words. Words. Word
to your mother.
Word to the mother, word up. I don't know.
This is so, we shouldn't. It's not
Yeah,
us.
we're gonna start doing our gangster rap and throwing our signs. No, we're not gonna do that. Anyway.
Our signs. I don't know what that means.
But see, we're gonna start this episode off a little unconventionally, so we get laughing, and so you get to laugh too. So there we go, right? Win-win. I don't know, those are words. Okay.
Those are words, yes. It's actually one word that you said twice. Have you ever had an experience where somebody, typically in a very excited way, tells you something, and then the more you dig through that, you realize the first thing they said is not at all what they should have said? I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I had a friend of mine's dad who storms into the room and goes, "Oh my God, somebody stole my wallet." And we're like, "Oh shit, someone stole your wallet." And he goes, "Well, I can't find it." And we're like, okay. So I had the same experience the other night. So, "You called me a blah, blah, blah." And then through further dissection, "Well, you didn't use that word." And it's like, okay, but then they didn't call you that, So part of this is perception, right? And I think part of this is attention getting. You get more attention screaming someone stole my wallet than I'm a doofus and can't find it. So it's like, words are so important, and I see people glazing over the fact that words are important. And so we thought we'd talk about the importance of words. Yeah,
because words are important, and because our words are magic, right? In a way, our words are spells. If you go back to the Four Agreements from Don Miguel Ruiz, that's one of the things that he talks about there is being impeccable with your word, right? And that's one of those things from a lot of ancient traditions that's there. And as I have, I've become a lot more aware of this the last few months, especially because there are a lot of idioms and other things that we use.
Sorry, right? I thought you were going to say there's a lot of idiots.
Well, there are a lot of idiots, right? But there's a lot of idioms. There's another. That's a $20 word for you, right?
It's a good one, yeah.
That I think we don't realize or think about, the meaning behind the words, and so we're throwing these words out there, kind of like casting your pearls before swine, if you will, or using them incorrectly, right? And it's so interesting because English especially, we have so many words that mean different things. They could be spelled exactly the same way, or phonetically they could be the same, like bear and bear. Well, one is I'm naked and the other is a nice furry animal, right? And so the context around the word, but even the words we're choosing to use, and the energy that goes along with that is so important. So like you said, this friend's father ran in, "Somebody stole my wallet." Well, that has a certain kind of energy sequence on it of anger and all this other stuff, and leading to some assumptions about what must have happened, because surely I didn't misplace my wallet. Somebody had to have stolen it, right?
Sure. It was very funny. I love Saturday Night Live. I love watching it on YouTube, so I don't have to see all the commercials because it's ridiculous. But there was a foreign actress on Saturday Night Live. English was not her first language. I don't remember who it was. Terrible with names. But during her opening monologue, she said that when she first landed in Hollywood and she was auditioning for roles, she was called in to do a reading for, it was a waitress, and the waitress had done something wrong. And the line was, "Oh, I beg your pardon." Well, she didn't know that "I beg your pardon" meant I'm sorry for what she thought she was actually begging his pardon. So she dropped to her knees and went, "I beg your pardon." And the director's like, what the fuck? Because in her language that that phrase didn't exist. And it was very funny the way she told it. But it's true. It's like words are so important. And so often we say things that aren't quite true that mislead people, or we mislead ourselves. And one of the big things, and I don't know, I mean, you're a coach as well. How many people say, I just want to be happy? And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means.
Mhm.
And then they can't tell me what it means. They don't know what happy means to them. And I think they do want to be happy. And how do you get it if you don't know what it is? That's like me saying, go to the store and grab me a floorball. And you're like, I don't know what a
The what?
floorball is. And I'm like, yeah, you'll figure it out.
Okay, Google floorball. What the hell is that, right? Well, no, and I think too, because English is such an interesting language because there's a lot of words, but we don't use most words. We've kind of dumbed down the language,
That's true.
which is nice because English has kind of become the common language around the world. And but the problem is, there's the distinctiveness between some of the different words doesn't exist as much now because we're using the
Hmm.
same words. So take happy, for example, right? Everybody kind of has an idea of what happy means,
Yep.
but happy is a subjective term, and so it means something different
Hmm.
different people, right? In psychology, happy is kind of defined as subjective well-being, right? And even that well-being, what does that mean? And
Hmm.
we've talked about that a little bit before, but because of that word happy can mean so many different things for so many different people.
Yep.
And it's the same way. It comes up anytime that you start, communicating or having an issue in trying to communicate with somebody. What's probably happening is you're both using a word, but you have a different context or a different meaning associated with it.
Yep. Yep. And of course, I had to look up happy, right? Delighted, pleased, or glad as over a particular thing.
Hmm.
Delighted, pleased, or glad. Delighted. There is a word that I don't know has ever escaped my lips as far as, oh, I'm delighted to join you. Like, I just don't use the word delight. I'm going to work delighted in today. But yeah, it's
And now
true. And
you've said it 4 times. So
yeah, but I didn't naturally say it. So I'll work that word in later. Um, but it's true. And it's like we all have different ideas of what the same word might mean depending on what part of the country we're from, if we're from this country. So it's so, just like you said, to be impeccable with your word. Some people think of that as being true to what you say you're going to do. It also does have to be with choosing the proper words and
yeah.
making sure you're getting your meaning across. I know when I was, to take a kind of sort of the affirmation aspect, when I was acting in Los Angeles, um, I was starting to do affirmations and I wanted to up my acting career. So I started doing the affirmation of, I'm a working actress. And then I went, wait a minute. I'm already a working actress. I want to be a paid actress. Like, let's be specific, right? So I start doing the I am a paid working actress. I'm a paid working actress. And I get my first paid job touring all over California with a children's theater. It pays $6 an hour. And I went, shit, like crap, that's not what maybe it was $12 an hour, but it was like, it was not, I couldn't make a living from it, right? And I realized though, the universe did give me what I asked for.
Mhm.
I was now a paid working actor. I needed to be a little more specific. So knowing what you want and the specificity is so important with our words.
Well, because I think even, if you go back to that word, the happy,
Yeah.
right, is that so I feel happy. That's so generic,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of times the words that we're using are so generic that they really kind of lose their meaning as
Hmm.
well,
Yep.
right? And so, my partner now, we have a term, it's called sloppy Joe. And it's not like eating sloppy Joes, but it means you're kind of being sloppy with your wording and you're being too general. And so whatever you're saying doesn't really land,
Yeah.
right? And so sometimes words like happy can be that way because
Hmm.
they're so general, so generic that we don't really oh, I'm happy. Well, Jason, why are you happy? Well, I'm delighted to drink this warm cup of coffee. Right. Now that has a totally different context, right? Now I got to take
Yeah.
a sip of coffee. Right? That coffee delights me. Well, that's different, right?
Mhm.
That actually has a different kind of energy associated with it than just saying, "Oh, I'm happy,"
Right.
or how are you doing? "Oh, I'm fine."
Fine. Yeah. Oh, fine has
How
become that word.
real I'm good, right? So words like that, like fine, good, those are kind of sloppy Joe words where,
Mhm.
well, what do you mean, right? And so this is where, from a word perspective, we've got to start kind of peeling it back. Right. And so if you want to actually have a deep conversation with somebody, you've got to start asking some questions, right?
Yeah.
So if Kathy comes to me and says, Jason, how you doing today? I'm like, oh, I'm good.
No.
Well,
What's good
really,
about
what's good about it, right?
it?
And starting to, ask some questions to kind of get into uh what I actually mean.
Right.
Because I think sometimes we also don't even really understand what it
Mhm.
is that we're feeling, and so we use a generic word like that where there's a better word that we could use, right? And it's the same thing too when you're talking with somebody and they use a word and you're like, "Oof, whoa, that wasn't quite what I thought," right? Well, what do you mean by
Yep.
the
I don't
word?
understand what you mean by that. Can you explain it? So,
Yeah.
so you said something that was so important. So when you said I'm good, and I said what's good about that? When I would go to a museum with my ex-husband, and I would stand in front of a piece of art and go, "Oh my God, I really love this piece." He'd say, "Why?" And I'd go, I don't know. I just like it." And he would press me by saying why over and over and over again, which for some reason didn't work for me. Now, when I like, I'll come home and I'll say, "Oh my God, I had the best client session." And rather than saying why, he'll say, "Oh, what was good about it? What
Mhm.
did you like about it? What made it so special?" It's the same question, basically. Why and what is good about it is the same. I know it's trying to elicit the same answer, but for some reason, just asking why didn't do it for me. The question of what did you like about that? What was special about that? What appeals to you about that? That triggers something else in me in a good way. And I can be more eloquent in answering that question. It's fascinating how two people asking a similar thing get two completely different responses.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because the word why, is probably overused a lot. And I know people, like root cause analysis, you must ask why five
I love the
times,
five whys, but
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's great in that way, but sometimes the why doesn't even matter, right?
right.
Things are just what it is, right? Well, why are you feeling that way, Kathy? Well, I don't know. I just am feeling that way,
Hmm.
right? I mean, that's kind of your response. And so, I can understand where that's again, it's kind of a sloppy Joe word of well, why don't you have a little bit more thought
Right.
about what it is that you're going to say instead of just going, why? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Why? I mean, those are.
Sit there and be quiet, or I'm turning this podcast around.
Oh, no. Are we going to have to go home?
Yes. We're
But
both fine with it, yeah.
yeah, well, we're both home anyway. So,
Well, and I was gonna oh crap, I had something. Talking about okay, so some things are hard to language, right? Emotions are really hard to language, and physical sensation is really hard to language, right? As a massage therapist, when someone says this hurts, I'm like, well, what do you mean it hurts? Like, or I'm feeling something here. Well, is it a tingling? Is it a numbness? Is it a sharp pain? Is it like a headache in your arm? Is it it's like trying to use words to describe physical sensations is so incredibly difficult because everybody feels things differently.
mhm.
And this is why I have the feeling wheel in my office. So when I'm working with clients and they say, I'm really angry about this, I go, okay, well, let's dissect that a little bit. I hand them the feeling wheel. They look at anger, which, shoots out into this pie of all these other words that are subsets or not similes so much, but just sort of subsets of anger. And they'll go, oh, I'm rage, I'm disappointed, I'm humiliated. It brings all these other words into it. And that makes it so much richer than just saying I'm angry. So I wish we had a physical feeling wheel because it's
Well, because it is, there's, I've been told a lot too that sometimes language is so limiting. Right. And like I said, especially English, it's not that English is limiting. lots of words in the English language. We just don't use them. I don't know what it is, but there's only a few thousand words that most people actually use. We probably have hundreds of thousands of words. And some, like that, you call it a word wheel, right? I mean, that's
The
a
emotions wheel, yeah.
emotions wheel. That's such a great kind of tool
Mhm.
because now all of a sudden, you're starting to have kind of synonyms
Yep.
or parts of the definition of the bigger word. And as you dig in, then you can really kind of find out why, right? And
Yeah.
kind of get to the bottom of it. It's just like when something happens and you're triggered and all of a sudden you feel angry. It's like, well, why do I feel angry? Well, I don't
Mhm.
know. Is it because you're perturbed?
Yes.
There's another word for you, perturbed.
I love perturbed. Hey, can I
But,
share my screen real quick? Can I
oh
do that?
yeah.
Because I've got the emotion wheel up. Yeah. Okay, so for any of you who are watching, that's the emotional wheel. So you see under anger, you've got hurt, threatened, hateful, mad, aggressive, frustrated, distant, critical, and then it breaks it down even further. Devastated, resentful, enraged, provoked, infuriated. To say I'm angry and I'm violated, it evokes two really different things, right? Skeptical, suspicious,
Mhm.
and then under happy, we've got like proud and fulfilled and loving, hopeful, sensitive. So I love using this because it just expands our language around emotions. So
No, well, that's a great example there, because again, like you said, I think most of the time, most of us are kind of rotating around that middle part of the wheel,
yeah.
and we never get out. And so, it's the same thing, when we can just use angry and happy, like you said, if somebody comes up and goes, "Oh, I'm so angry." Well, why are you angry? What are you angry about, right? And
Mhm.
start getting into the deeper of what it is, because anger to one person can have a certain connotation, anger to another person can have a different connotation.
Yeah.
And especially when we overuse words, uh, it becomes very difficult to know what the meaning of it actually is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Asking clarifying questions. And, when I do my communication talk, one of the slides is, do you grok it? And very few of us nerds know what grok is. I always ask the audience, and there was always like one guy in the back that's like, I know what grok is. And for those of you that don't know what grok is, it's from Stranger in a Strange Land by Heinlein. And it means like seriously get it, like on a deep level, understand, like feel what the person means or what the thing means. And it's like, if you don't understand what they're saying to you, you have to ask for clarification. I had a client come to me and she goes, yeah, I don't really understand my boss and this is a really hard job. And he handed my report back to me and said, make it better. And I said, okay, well, what does make it better mean? And she said, I don't know. I was hoping you could tell me.
Yeah.
Like, how would I know what make it better means? Like bigger font, puppets, less graphs. Like, I don't know what make it better means. And so often we're embarrassed to clarify things. We don't want to, ask questions for fear of looking stupid, for fear of feeling like we're not paying attention, for whatever it is. And it's like, but if you do not understand a directive from someone or what the word someone using means to them, you have to ask questions. Please, please, please get curious and ask for clarification. So there's my lecture on words.
Yeah, and I think too, we can start looking at the words that we're using. Just start kind of self-auditing yourself on some of the words that you're using. And I think we've talked about this one before on the podcast, but the word sorry, right?
Mm,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, right? There's a certain energy that goes along with when you say you are sorry, and the root of sorry comes back to the emotion of sorrow,
mm,
right? A very low frequency emotion. And so by saying you're sorry, you're in a way going into an emotional space of sorrow,
mm,
even though you don't realize it.
right.
And so what are some words that you're using? And this is one again, I've been working on this for a while
Mm,
to not say I'm sorry because I want to say I'm sorry, right? That's what I've been
right.
trained, for
Yeah.
this half a century of my life to say. But start finding some different ways, right, that you can actually say it. And so this is one, actually, this is real life, me actually experiencing this, right? I kind of switched from sorry to I apologize
Mm-hmm.
for that, right? So there's another way of kind of saying that without going into the sorrow,
Yeah,
right? Apologize has less emotion tied to it,
that's true.
and it doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong per se, but I apologize for your inconvenience, let's say, right? Is better than, oh, I'm so sorry, I made you late or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And but even then, as I would say, I apologize, sometimes that still didn't really land right
Mm-hmm.
energetically. And so, a thing that kind of came up was I did something, that again was not my intention, but it came across a certain way to my partner. And so, again, in my head, I'm wanting to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," but I didn't. I said, "I apologize for that." And she looked at me and she's like, "Can you say that a different way?" Right. And so we've started doing this to each other. Like when something doesn't really land right,
Mm,
could you say it a different way? Could you use a different word so that the energy associated behind our intention is actually what it is?
interesting.
And so I said, "Will you please forgive me?"
Oh, wow.
Now that has a totally different kind of loving energy behind it,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, "Oh, I'm sorry," or, "Oh, I apologize," right? And so now I'm starting to try to say, "Please forgive me for that.
Mm-hmm.
That was not my intention."
Yeah. Well, and also with I'm sorry, we say I'm sorry for everything. We bump into somebody, oh, I'm sorry. We interrupt somebody, oh, I'm sorry. Someone dies, I'm so sorry for your loss. Why are you sorry for my loss? I mean, that one always struck me as weird. It's like, I just lost my whatever. Oh, I'm so sorry. Did you kill them? I mean, it's like, why are you so, it's like, so I apologize. You wouldn't apologize. I just, my cat died. I apologize. So there are really different meanings to all of that stuff. And I think choosing those words, and especially I love that she said, can you say that differently? Because we have to develop rules of relationships, of how we want to be treated, of what words work for us and what things work for us. And I think it's fabulous that she brought that up and that you guys are you could have
Yeah,
said, I beg your pardon.
I beg your pardon, darling. No, but even then, I mean, because like I said, there's energy behind the words we use.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing. I mean, if you're being sarcastic, right, then people can usually kind of feel the energy behind it. And it's like, oh, the word they're using is not what they really mean because they're being sarcastic or ironic
Mhm.
about something, right?
Yeah.
And even too, sometimes it's the context that you're in. A word like honey, right? And I'm not talking necessarily about the eating honey, but sometimes we use that as a term of endearment. But it's also been used sometimes in kind of a derogatory way of almost kind of putting
Mhm.
women down, like, "Oh, honey.
Oh, come on, honey, just get
Oh,
over it.
come
Yeah.
on, honey." Yeah. And so, a word like that used, you have to be really kind of careful as well, right? Because based on the context of a situation that you're in, when you say that one time, it might land wrong. It might
Mhm.
land very wrong. And yet, with the same person in a slightly different context, it may be an endearing term.
Yeah. And that's such a personal thing for people. So if you grew up in it where you were demeaned by being called honey, and now you're with a new partner who goes honey, da 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 da, that might completely trigger them, which where it wasn't meant to. Can I tell a joke?
Of course you can.
Okay,
Does it
so
have words in the joke? Because we're talking about
there
words
are
today.
words, and it totally goes with what you just said. So, a kindergarten teacher loves to bring treats for her students, and she gets rolls of different colored lifesavers. And little kids know colors and flavors of lifesavers. So you've got your purple one's your grape, your red is cherry, the green one is lime, the yellow one's lemon, and so on. So one day she finds a roll of honey lifesavers, and she's like, "Oh, what a treat for these kids!" So she brings the honey lifesavers in, and I don't know if you remember these. I don't even think they make them anymore, but they were this sort of like amber color. And the
Hmm.
kids are like, they're looking at it and they're smelling it. And they don't understand what this flavor is. So she has them all, eat it. And then she says, "Can anyone tell me what flavor this is?" And the kids are baffled. They have no idea. And she goes, okay, well, I'll give you a hint. It might be a nickname that your mommy calls your daddy. And this kid jumps up, spits the lifesaver out of his mouth, and goes, oh my God, are these assholes?
Yep.
And with that, I'm Kathy Gruber.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think it's yeah. I think that's
Right? I mean, it illustrates our point
that's
perfectly.
illustrates the point perfectly, and yeah, how important words are. You know, being more aware of what you're saying, clarifying more what other people are saying, right? So that we can actually communicate together
Oh,
instead of
please.
talking past each other.
Yeah, communication is the key to everything. Relationships, leadership, happiness. You know, happy, that word that is just so. So, I beg your pardon. I'm Kathy Gruber. I can be reached at kathygruber.com.
And I'm Jason Mefford. I can be reached at jasonmefford.com. So go out, have a great week, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Fire and Earth podcast. See ya.
Yeah.